No.
A very good evening, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio. Hang on a minute. Okay, I'll get started properly this time. Tricia and David here with you, and it is the usual time for us to start, despite the fact that New Zealand now has daylight saving because they think it's summer. Looking out my window, you wouldn't probably think that because it's 100% cloud cover and only 14 degrees, which is not very tropical because of the 10 knots of southerly wind. We've got a barometer of 1013.9, and we're sort of waiting for the next high from Australia to give us a little bit more warmth. Okay, let's go for a little bit of news first. The very boring COVID news from New Zealand. We have 12 new cases today, 18 yesterday. We get all these wonderful statistics. 13 in hospital, 4 in ICU, 6,906 tests in the last 24 hours, 24,710 jabs yesterday, which was Sunday. 5 million jabs so far amongst the country. 82% of Aucklanders have had one jab, and I isolate Auckland because we are now in our 40th day of lockdown, and we are all pretty fed up because Auckland is a very big area, not just the city, and it's only in the southern part of the city that the COVID cases are occurring. But we have another week of lockdown. Germany, interesting news from there because Angela Merkel has retired, of course, and her party is doing rather poorly in the exit voting. So it could be a little bit of a problem in Germany trying to get a ruling group together, but we'll probably know the final result by the time I talk to you on Wednesday. Back to COVID, New South Wales, despite the fact that they've got 767 new cases in the last 24 hours, it is dropping. 12 deaths, however, 1,155 cases in hospital, 214 in intensive care, and 115 requiring ventilation, but they are 60% fully vaccinated. And the Premier, she has announced all the things that vaccinated people can do when the percent vaccination is 80%. This is trying to encourage people. It was quite a really characteristic Australian list, actually. The first one was that residents in New South Wales will be able to freely travel within New South Wales. But the second one gave me a bit of a laugh. People can stand up and drink in a pub. Now that was ahead of what I would consider more important things, like the fact that you can have 10 visitors to a house and you can have unlimited people at a funeral or a wedding and stuff like that. But no, the second most important thing was that you can stand up and have a drink in the pub. Going to the UK, other side of the world, we have panic buying of fuel. This is caused by the stations, well, obviously running out of fuel, but there is enough fuel in the country. It's just not in the right place because they have a major shortage of truck drivers. This is evidently the case in the UK, USA, and Germany, a shortage of truck drivers. So if anyone wants a good job, see the world when you decide that lazing about in the water and the sunshine is just getting too boring for you, you could take on truck driving. Fiji, well, they're ramping up Nandi Airport operations in expectations and anticipation of the reopening of the border in December. I was under the belief that it was November, but it's December. And evidently Fiji Airways, Qantas and Virgin Australia have already started taking passenger bookings for December. We had, of course, the usual Cindy Kindi 4 o'clock television from the Prime Minister and the Chief Health Man today. A couple of announcements of interest that they are going to trial business travellers doing MIQ at home. There is quite a, I wouldn't say scandal, but it is a disaster, the whole MIQ process. Thousands and thousands of people want a space and there's not that many available. So they're going to trial 150 people, business travellers, where they believe it would be safer because the if there was something go wrong, then the business is going to be held responsible. But they will trial them at home. And the other thing was that they will allow people from Vanuatu, Samoa and Tonga into the country in October to participate in the worker scheme that they have for the agricultural industry, horticultural actually, industry. They will not go to an MIQ facilities, but they will isolate for 14 days at their place of work. So that's sort of a step in the right direction. It probably is worthwhile contacting Mr. Hipkins about cruises, and I probably will do that, even though it will be a waste of time, but it would be another way of letting some people into the country that they didn't have to provide MIQ facilities for, really. Okay, let's have a look at the couple of boats that are on their way to New Zealand at the moment. We have Vingalot, 26 degrees 17 south and 17409 east. Very light northwesters, 9 knots actually, but they'll make the most of that for another day until the front comes. Speed at the moment is 4.7 on a course of 150 degrees true. And not tied down is 25 miles behind them, same conditions of course. And there's a boat, Mamaku, from Canada coming over from French Polynesia at 28 south and 178 west. So, there's also about 5 boats heading from French Polynesia to Fiji. So that's the situation at the moment with boats. Everyone else seems to be enjoying some pretty decent conditions in Fiji. But I'll pass it to David to see what the real situation is.
Well, good afternoon from the old weather desk again. A bit of a messy synoptic chart today, really. The main features are the Tasman High, centered at roughly 35 south and 160 east, the one Krishna was talking about. Pressure about 1025 millibar. Now we've got a series of lows that are just to the east of New Zealand, barely to the east. One is just off East Cape, and another one right around the Napier areas, east of Napier. The first low that I talked about, however, sends a frontal band north right along the date line. Then it arcs toward New Caledonia, and it continues from there on to Australia, if you can believe it. It hits the coast of Australia at 25 south, so it's quite a bit of an arc that the front is taking. Now, by Tuesday, which is tomorrow, the front will unfortunately be in the way of the yachts going south, crossing, I'll give you some coordinates, about 30 south and 175 east. So that frontal band crosses those coordinates. And those coordinates happen to be exactly on the run line from Fiji to New Zealand. So not much to look forward to there. Now, long range, those of you that are long underway are not hearing this, but just maybe of interest to you folks up in Fiji. Long range is going to be a depression in the mid-Tasman, and a strong cold front from it is going to cross over northern New Zealand. Now, this is going to happen approximately for October, not that far away, a week, really. So a very, very good chance of some nasty weather there, gales, I'm sure. Yachts that plan to close on New Zealand need to avoid this front if possible, whether that means slowing down or whatever. The idea, though, is not to get caught up in it if that's at all possible. Up in the tropics, we've got a number of troughs evident on satellite imagery. One is over the Solomons, another one over Rotuma, goes on to Wallis, and then to Samoa. There's another one that's just to the northeast of Niue, and the last one that I see is over the southern Cooks. So a fair amount of activity up there in the tropics. Those in Fiji, Fiji Met calls for basically fine weather over most parts of the group, apart from the usual brief showers over the interior and eastern parts of the larger islands like the Viti Levu, Vanua Levu, Taveuni, Kindavu, plus the Lau and the Loma Viti group. Now, virtually the same weather for Wednesday, so not too bad really. Winds for Tuesday, tomorrow, are somewhat variable in direction. I'd say east-southeast for most areas, but east-northeast right around the Kindavu area, Kindavu Pass and Kindavu, the island itself. Winds pick up a little bit on Wednesday. I'd say about 20 knots for most areas. It'll be east-southeast, give or take, on that direction. And 25 knots for Vatui Ra and also southwest of Viti Levu. So a little bit of wind there. Thursday, expect 20 knots southeasterlies, and there'll be a few areas of 25 knots as well. Now, I'll give you a little long range for Saturday. You can expect fresh to strong winds, at least 25 knots southeasterlies. So, for those of you that like the strong winds for your kiting activities, there you go. For those of you that don't like to drag, that's not so fun. So, that's it for me, and I'll pass it over to the chief.
All right, yes. There's always horses for courses, isn't it? Isn't there some expression that one man's junk is another man's treasure? It sort of goes with wind, doesn't it? Okay, is there anybody wanting to make a contact with Gulf Harbour Radio? Please call now. Good heavens, I told David we wouldn't be able to copy you tonight, Charles, and here you are. And going quite well. I'm just going to repeat your position. It will be pretty close. It was about 20 minutes ago. For others that are listening, 2617 and 17409. But what are your conditions and how's things going, Charles? Over.
Well, we've been motoring most of the day. We had a little bit of sailing this afternoon when the nor'wester filled in. I'm afraid even that has died down and we're back to motoring, which is a little sad. We're managing 5 knots. It's slower than not tied down to allow them some opportunity to get us up. And we're making some southeasting, so a bit of easting so that we can manage the predicted southeasterlies that we're going to experience after the front moves over. So we expect to have the front come across us in the 4 hours of tomorrow morning. All well on board, and we've enjoyed it. Sunshine day with long, lazy swells. It's just been one of those glorious days. Over.
Oh, that sounds really good. And what a fantastic signal. If anybody on the family is listening to you tonight, they will hear you hale and hearty. So what is your ETA at the moment, over?
So we're expecting Saturday or Sunday, to be in Opua, over.
Okay, Sunday in Opua. Okay, do you want to make any comment? I'm just going to pass the microphone. David can just outline what might be ahead. I'm sure you've got information coming from several sources, but you might as well add this to it.
Sunday, you said?
Yeah, Sunday.
Yeah, you're just going to make it in time on Sunday, I think. I'm sure your writer is going to give you good information. That funnel band looks to me like it's going to be there on Monday, and it's not very pleasant, that particular band. So if you can get in there by Sunday, you should have northeast winds, 15 to 20. The stronger winds are behind you by a day, so good luck on that. Over.
Roger, so we've been watching that very carefully, and we may, in fact, so we've done half our distance already, so we left on Thursday. We may, in fact, be lucky enough to make it on Saturday, over.
Yeah, well, that would be even better, although, of course, you have to face the MIQ situation, over.
Roger, so we have to come in on Tuesday if we want to miss MIQ, and I've decided to give that whole concept a miss, looking at that low looking pretty miserable, over.
Yeah, indeed. A very good seaman-like decision, which of course we'd expect from you. So, in fact, I think if people are listening, safety of the vessel and crew really has to come before a decision on the 12 days. So, well done on that one. And, well, I tell you what, I talked to Lynn Pardee, and they came over from Australia and had to MIQ, and she said she couldn't think of any better way to finish a passage than going to a lovely hotel with hot water that never stops, a big comfortable bed, and meals provided 3 times a day. Over.
No, there are certain members of the crew who are looking forward to just that.
Oh, very good. Well, it sounds like there would be no complaints from them for today. The one good thing about having Toyota is that you don't have to deal with rough conditions. So that's really good. I'll just pass the microphone. No, David doesn't have anything more to add. So, I'm really delighted to be able to talk to you. And yes, I see from Not Tied Down's speed, they are busily trying to catch you up. So, but I'm sure they'll do all right, knowing that you'll pave the way for them ahead. So, have a good rest of the evening and make use of the northerly winds before the front comes. And good luck on the rest of it. I'll be on briefly on Wednesday to keep people up to date with where you are, and we'll see where you are then. I doubt that we'll be able to copy you on Wednesday, but somebody might be able to relay anything from Fiji. But of course, we'll know where you are from the AIS. So great to hear you, Charles, and have a good evening, everybody on board. Over.
Thank you, Patricia and David. We've enjoyed keeping the net, and with a bit of luck, we'll be able to hear you on Wednesday. Have a wonderful evening. This is Zingalot closing.
Okay, is there anybody else wanting to make contact with either Gulf Harbour Radio or Zingalot? Please call now. No, nothing here to hear. So we'll. And by the way, don't forget when you arrive, Zingalot and Not Tied Down, that we are on daylight saving now. So the time here in New Zealand is 6:32. Just in case you wonder where customs are if you're outside of their working hours. Cheers, everybody, and this is Gulf Harbour Radio. David probably won't be here on Wednesday. There's not much to report, but I will be here with an update, and that will be at the same time. Cheers all, and have a good evening.